Hey all, Pixel here in Purple Garage. We're starting the bodywork on the Powercar Thunderbird Jr. So quick refresh. This is the body from a 1957 Powercar Thunderbird Jr. This company had the license to make replicas of Ford cars. It used to be on an electric car chassis. That was long gone when I got it. I built this chassis for it. Now we got to do all the bodywork on it. I stripped off most of the paint that was on it. In one of the early videos, this gray I thought was the lowest layer, but it turns out the original red paint's actually under it. There's a lot to do. I picked up some adhesive that says it works on fiberglass. So what I'm going to use this for is those holes that used to be the mirror and that hole that's just there. What I'm going to do is scuff up the back surface, clean it up, and use this to bond a piece of really thin aluminum back there. It's just to be a backer so that I can reinforce, I can fill those holes. All right, so that patch I put in is dry over here. I took out the screws. Yeah, there's more holes in it, but who cares? And this one's also nice and dry. Those are now nice and solid to back filling them. I just fired up the heater to keep it nice and warm in here. So we're going to go in. I'm going to find my fiberglass filler. We're going to fill these. We're going to fill this. There's a bunch of other stuff. And I'm going to use more of that two-part epoxy to fill a lot of the small stuff. Like there's holes here from a windshield attempt. I'm going to shove some of that in here to lock some of this down a little bit better. And then, but I think I may have to come in and open this up first. Anyway, we're going to do a lot of the pre-prep work. We're going to fill all holes. We're going to try and improve cracks, things like that, so that I can then start doing the serious body work on it. I am not, as I've established, I'm not opening this up, this trunk that I was talking about, because now that I've got the support back here, so I can sit on it here, I'd have to cut the trunk short. It wouldn't actually give me access to the gas filler. There's kind of no reason to bother. So I'm going to V these cracks out a little bit, fill them with some more of that epoxy, and hopefully that'll take care of that. Alrighty, well, I'm done for now. I kind of messed up in the sense that it failed to occur to me that, like, hey, if you're putting epoxy in there, you can't then immediately cover it with the filler until the epoxy's actually had a chance to cure. So I've mixed up more filler than I should have because I was assuming I was going to be packing it into there and there. But that's fine. Not a big deal. It just means I'm going to have to mix up a small amount of filler next time and go forward. But I'm sure I'm going to need more filler next time anyway. But what I ended up... So this, I just I hollowed this out a little bit with the Dremel and then just crammed as much of the epoxy as I could in there. I'm just trying to like further reinforce this a little bit. This is a little bit of a lost cause in terms of like, it's such a, like it was clearly very broken there. They put a metal reinforcement in. This, I now know this has all been rebuilt out of Bondo, this whole dashboard area. And then it's now re-cracked. So all I'm trying to do is add a little bit more structure, you know, tie in what's there with the epoxy, and then I'm going to use the fiberglass reinforced filler to fill that in. Similar to these cracks over here, I kind of filled those in with the epoxy. All the trim holes from the Thunderbird logos that were on both sides, the trim holes on the back, the trim holes on the front that didn't have any trim, all that stuff got the epoxy to just, you know, because I don't trust the filler not to pop out if I just pack this with filler. So I figured I'll pack it with the epoxy first, let the epoxy dry, and then put the filler on top of it, and that should be pretty good. So that's the epoxy, and then the fiberglass reinforced filler. I filled this now that I've backstopped it. I filled this now that I've backstopped it. That edge up there that was all broken off has been filled. The corners have been filled. There's a broken area here, a broken area there. These ridges. Anyway, what I was trying to do is anywhere where it was broken, I was packing it, and in cases like this where it's hard to get the shape right, I just overdid it. I put too much so I can sand it back. I'm going to have to come in with regular body filler on those to get them right, but I wanted the strength of this stuff to be the core part of it. And then because I had so much, what I decided I was going to try and do, and it's probably not going to work, is I decided all of these deep chips, or a bunch of the deep chips, I was going to skim over with the fiberglass filler with the plan of sanding that completely back, you know, smooth with the sander. That's why I did it on like the flat surfaces mostly. And then I can come in with the regular filler and fill it in, but there's going to be less of a step of that. So there's less likely to be little like popped circles everywhere. I have no idea if that's going to work or not, but I had the filler, so I figured I'd give it a shot. Like I said before, I'm not going to get this perfect. I'm not a body man, but I want to get it decent looking. That's my big goal. And the big thing is like all the actively broken areas, I want to try and like get those back to looking nice. That's my primary goal. Is I want to have no obvious damage to it. I want it to look halfway decent. I want to put a coat of paint on it and have it look nice. I want it like, you know, if the person who buys this off of me gives it to their kid for Christmas, I want the kid to be excited to have a new shiny thing kind of attitude. Whether I'm going to have it done by Christmas, we're not even talking about that. Whether I'm going to sell it or not successfully, we're not even talking about that. But like that's the philosophy I have in my head as far as like what I'm aiming for. It's the same night I decided to do some work because the fiberglass actually set up. The epoxy hasn't completely set up. I'm a little nervous about that, but the fiberglass did, so I decided to do some sanding, which is why everything is covered. I love sanding. But here's where we are. I did everything I could do with the DA. So like this hasn't actually properly been done, and other coves and things like that are not fully done, but I wanted to knock everything back real quick. Like this edge is done. The first version of this corner is up. A lot of the big flat areas I filled are done. Like I started shaping that. That's going to need a lot more. Sanded this back. And then just tried to hit every single surface. One of the things I realized is all the places where it was bubbled, I needed to go in and break those bubbles so that I can sand it. The back here hasn't been done because this is all still soft. But like I came in and did my first round of shaping here. I'm really happy with that. That's coming together good. Same with the points over here. A lot of sanding in through here and stuff. And yeah, I'm pretty happy. Quick lunchtime video. I came out this morning and put another coat of the fiberglass filler on. You know, all the stuff where the epoxy was that had finally dried. So I filled that, touched up other spots, and then again I had extra, so I did more of that. Stuff like this I'm going to try and fill just by doing this and then grinding it all smooth. The big hole where the old steering column was got a big glob of it. I don't know how well that's going to work, but it was worth a shot since I had the filler. Just now what I did was I realized that hole where the controls for the mirror I removed was still there. I completely somehow spaced on it. So just now I epoxied another piece of metal over that, and then took some more epoxy and I trimmed this and this where there was those like bits of metal hanging out, and then tried to get epoxy in between the metal and the dash to sort of lock this back together. Like so many times before, I do the first time, I don't bother to put any sort of dust collection in place because that's going to be fine. I cover the place in dust. Second time I put dust collection in place, it's so much better and less miserable. One of these years I've done. But anyway, all of the machine sanding of this coat of filler is done. Came out pretty good. This is all going to need way more work back here. Probably another skim coat of the fiberglass filler over these sections, at least down the sides here, before I can move on to some other kind of filler. I didn't do that's going to be hand sanded. This is basically set here, except for a little tiny bit that's going to be done with the regular filler. This is in really good shape, though there's some more sanding needs to be done at the front. This area in here needs more filler and more work. It's never going to be quite right because I'm not quite sure what the right shape is supposed to be anymore, but I'm going to try and get it to look decent and smooth. Did a bunch of hand sanding in the front here, which sucked. But this is all way better in through here. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's much improved. This corner and this corner are going to be the bane of my existence. I did a lot in there. It still looks like hell because getting in there is terrible. I haven't even started on this one, and I already regret its existence. This is kind of done. I'm getting there. I'm definitely seeing progress. That's the most important part. All right, next evening, I got some more stuff on here. I got it on here. Filled this in, added a little more, you know, just sort of that. A couple other little spots here and there. Plan today, send this back, get it where I think it's going to be good. The big thing is, I think now I have enough built up here to be able to get some nicer transitions in here. Because the first go here was just to fill in that giant void. I've got every surface now. I've had the sandpaper run over it to some degree or another. Pretty good. There's definitely flaws everywhere. Some of which probably could use some more hand sanding out, but I think it's ready at this point for me to like dust it with some primer just to see what I've got, with the intent of the primer is going to come right back off again pretty much. But it's already way improved. The only frustration, ironically, is these cracks that I filled with epoxy so that they'd seal are like, popping isn't the right word, but I don't know quite what's going on there. I don't know if the epoxy isn't set up or what, but I may end up having to grind those out and just put the fiberglass filler in them, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm gonna blow this off, wipe it down, and I think I have some automotive sandable filler or primer that I'm just gonna dust the whole thing with to see what I got to work with. The half a spray can of automotive primer that I don't remember when I bought and blah 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 has disappeared at some point. Big surprise. So I decided, you know what, hey, maybe I will just spray the epoxy primer I was talking about before on, use it as a sealer, and then go forward from there. Yeah, it turns out when you buy epoxy primer like 4 years ago and then leave it on the shelf, multiple minutes, like I've been stirring this for at least 10-15 minutes and it's still just ugh. It was like a almost clear fluid with the layer of this stuff at the bottom. It's now got some thickness to it, so it is actually dissolving it very, very slowly. I think using this as a sealer, you're supposed to do 1 part the primer, 1 part hardener, and a half a part reducer. So I think what I'm actually just going to do, since I'm going to mix this for a little longer, but I don't think it's going to mix much more. I think I'm just going to do 1-to-1 of these without the reducer and kind of assume that the less solids in there kind of balances out the reducer not being in there, and shoot it on there. It should still seal. I mean, worst case scenario, it's a little on the thin side. Whoop-de-doo. Should I be painting it with something serious at this point? Almost certainly not. Am I going to do it? Yes. So, yeah, it is dissolving. Like, the chunk is smaller, but there's also still so much stuck to the bottom that every time I sort of like decide, oh, hey, that's kind of dissolved, I'll dig some more, I can just bring up more. But yeah, so yeah, I think I'm just going to spray that on, do a really quick job. I have to throw something over this so I don't spray a big square in the middle of the table. I'm not going to bother worrying about the legs, and I'm just going to give this a very quick hose down and sort of take it from there. Where the heck did all this black goo? Sorry, I just noticed, I just washed this and it's now covered in little bits of black goo. I don't know what that came from. Weird. Anyway, I guess I'm going to have to clean it again. Whatever. Alright, let's see what happens. Hey, dang, that actually worked really well. As previously established, I have no ability to judge how much paint I need. I did 2 ounces the first time and it got me like a side and a little bit. So I did 4 ounces this time, and that got me multiple coats all the way around. So, I don't know. I don't care. Did what it needed to do, but this definitely did what I needed, which is that everything's one color. Now I can see the surface way, way better. And it's actually a lot better than I feared in a lot of ways. Like, this here is almost all good. There's a little skim coating that's going to happen, a little sand out need to happen. This needs more work. The fins are actually pretty decent. Everything's going to need work, but like the fins are pretty decent. This area back here, if I'd done more sanding right there, would have basically been good. There's paint chips there. Paint chips are going to be one of my big banes here. You see, that's much more pronounced than I thought it would be. So that's going to need reworking. Up in here's got some work. There's a big chunk there that I didn't even notice. Some big scratches or something. That's something that somehow on both sides I missed when I was doing all the fiberglassing. I don't know how, but that's going to need work. This actually all looks pretty good for the fact that it's roughly sanded fiberglass filler only. So I'm on the right track there. That's basically just going to need continuous smoothing to get that right. The hood scoop looks good. There's a cracking there, some cracking there. This area needs work. That's something I need to work on. This corner's pretty bad, actually. This is an area that when I stripped down to that gray, this had, before that gray, or before the layers above that gray went on, this had been sanded back to the lower level, and that all needs work. The hood over here, oh, see, more cracking issues there. Now that's not what I just put on cracking, that's cracking below it, but now I'm fearful about adhesion. Just occurred to me some of this might be lacquer and I may have just screwed myself. We'll find out. See, this all needs work. That's actually looking pretty good. This one's looking a little rougher than that one. But both of them I think I can do with final fill. A lot of sanding scratches, so I was using 150. This area is not too bad. Again, this is all pretty decent in through here. A lot of, like the area where the holes are is good, but below it needs a lot of work. There's some deep cracks or scratches or something all down the body here. This is better than I thought it would be for how bad it looked physically. Like, you know, this area needs a lot of work. This area needs work. I had to rebuild this corner and it's actually pretty good. Yeah. And then to rebuild this area here, still pretty decent again. This is about the only place I got any dripping. Looks like it could have gotten more on the back of that fin. But it already looks way better. Just in one damn color for the first time I've had it. And now I've got a really good idea of what it looks like and what I need to work on. Alrighty, lunchtime. And it's dry now. And yeah, so much nicer looking. Still needs a ton of work, like I said last night, but what an improvement. So the nice thing about this, when you do this, when you get it all one color, is you can see stuff you never would have noticed before. Like, now I know these cracks are a bigger deal. Didn't even pay any attention to them before. Now I know there's something I need to deal with. The cracks along here, these are just in the paint, by the way, just to be clear. But these big long, there's two like big long cracks over here. Clearly this side got flexed at some point and cracked the paint. Those were basically, they looked like minor scratches before. Now I know there's something I need to put a little more work into. what was the other thing? There was something else that I was... there's a little bit of the fiberglass filler right there, and there's some on the other side over here in the groove for the hood that I'd never noticed before. You know, because I sanded this whole area, it was nice and smooth, but I never even noticed that in there. So I'm going to work on that. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing with the hood groove over here, because it all needs cleanup all through here, and then it disappears into this repaired area. Same thing on this side. It disappears up. What I think I'm probably going to do is see if I can find kind of the same point on both sides and sort of fade it up in and have it just kind of disappear. And then same thing with like these lines here. I'm just going to have to kind of decide what I'm saving and what I'm not, because there's not really any way to save all of it. There's no good way to put these back in again that I can think of. I'm sure there's a technique. I don't know it. But yeah, this trunk lid is great. Like, this all needs, I mean, the whole thing needs sanding. It's rough from dust that landed in it because I did no garage prep before painting and had been sanding earlier that day. But like, this trunk lid looks mostly okay. There's little stuff here and there that needs to be dealt with, but considering the amount of damage that was there, it looks great. Same thing, like the big damage that was over here is now minor pucks that need to be filled in. So that, you know, we took care of that whole problem. The dash needs final work, including final sanding under here, but the big hole is gone. The hole that's over here is now gone completely and just needs cleanup. I didn't even finish sanding all the way down here. Oh, where's the... Here, where the mirror was is gone. It's completely just... There's no sign the mirror was ever there. There's a little bit of something I didn't sand or something there, but there's no sign the mirror was ever there. So all those big problems with the body, gone, taken care of, done. Work, because I want to get filler on it so it'll be dry when I'm done work. Scuffed the whole thing with a red scuffy, including trying real hard to get in, you know, this stuff where I could. Basically just trying to make sure I can adhere to it. A couple things that are happening. Where was it? Oh, here. A couple of the big chips that hadn't been dealt with before are flaked like this when I sprayed the whole thing down with compressed air. So I'm not going to put filler on that. I'm instead going to sand that down. There's a couple other, like there's one here that chipped and a little bit of the front there. So some of that stuff I'm going to address by sanding rather than filling and sanding. I'll probably have to put filler over it, but any of those that are still a sharp edge, you know, where it's broken off, I definitely need to go in and be aggressive about sanding that so I get a smooth transition, because that'll be less likely to chip in the future. Realistically, sealed a little bit more with a couple more layers, it'd probably be fine, but I want to do a good job. These cracks that were over here, I ground, and I'm going to put filler on because I'm thinking that might help with that. Like I think I may have mentioned, this may have older paint on it, like lacquer or something, and that may be part of my problem. And I'm going to risk it, because it should be pretty obvious pretty quick if there's an issue. And anybody sell it to, I'm going to make it really clear to them, look, this body was in really rough shape. I redid it, but I can't guarantee that the paint won't fail over time. That's a risk you have to accept buying it. So if somebody doesn't want to risk that, they don't buy it off of me, and I'm fine with that. All right, I think that filler is a little elderly. It was not going on smoothly. This was 2 rounds of it. It was also seeming to set up real hard, real fast, but that's also a me thing. I may have mixed too much. So I did as much as I felt like doing. There's still whole swaths that should be filled that I haven't, but I will do that in another round. All right, it's after work. Came out here, tried to do some sanding, and it's not fully cured yet. It's gumming the paper up real bad, and because it's doing this, it's causing other problems. It's the cold, really what it is. It's taken forever to completely cure. I'm going to fire up the heater I'm going to put more on, all that, like the sort of quadrant I didn't do much on here. And then hopefully that'll let this cure out. It will cure because it was already curing when I was putting it on. So if anything, it's got too much of the activator stuff in it. But because of how cold it is, it's clearly having difficulty with finishing that project. This is the same problem as having with the paint on some of the other projects. Once you're right around the edge of what the right temperature is, it starts acting a little weird. So yeah, I'm going to put some more on, fire up the heater, set myself an alarm for like 2 hours, come out, see if at least the stuff I put on earlier today is cured or not, and then kind of go forward from there. Thank goodness today's Friday, so I have the weekend so I can work on it during the day when it is warm, because it was up in the 50s today, which is way better. But the minute the sun went down, the temperature dropped. But what I did a little work, and I know I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be sanding through this primer everywhere. I understand that. But wow, there's still issues. Like this was a skin-coated area, and I took 99.9% of it off, and now there's texture from these bumps here. This is part of the problem. Is if I was trying to make something perfect that I was going to keep forever, I would have sanded this all down to that red. But I'm not trying to make something perfect, and I'm not trying to make something that's going to last forever. Yes, I'm selling it to somebody else, but they're going to understand. I'm going to make it clear to them that, like, hey, I did this myself in my garage, so, you know, account for that. But yeah, I'll catch up to you later. More filler. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the temperature. I don't know if it's the filler, but it's going on really cake frosting-y. So I may have even created more work for myself with the amount of stuff I filled. But it is what it is. If nothing else, this will give me practice. But yeah, this is going to sit for 2 hours. Hopefully that'll be enough to cure it all, because now I've mixed it in with all the other stuff, so now I can't really do the stuff that's already dry because I've done so much. The filler went a lot farther than it did in the previous rounds, even though I mixed about the same amount. So, is what it is. Worst case scenario, I work on it tomorrow. All right, well, I've run out of the right grit sandpaper for the moment, so I'm pausing here. I made the classic mistake I make all the time when I'm doing body work, which is putting the filler on too thick and forgetting how much of a pain it is to sand it all off. This is being massively contributed to by the fact that it is cold enough that the filler is not 100% setting up. Like, it's set up, but it's clogging the paper really bad. I am making progress. That whole corner has only had the most basic going over because I was out of paper. But like, this is all in way better shape. A little bit of hand sanding, and I think this will all be good. Like, these are pretty good, though I put too much filler on the inside of them. So I've made work for myself there that I didn't need to. If I know this filler was going to go on better, wasn't going to go on as good, I would have been way more circumspect with it. But I'm making progress. This side's been roughly done. This is, again, there's a whole check there that I haven't done. This is a pain in the ass to sand because it vibrates. The trunk lid I'm actually really happy with. It doesn't look it, but this is really pretty smooth right now, and I think some thick primer and a little bit of sanding of that primer and I'll be good. This needs more. Again, the verticals are really a pain to sand. There's a lot of hand sanding I've unfortunately doomed myself to, like around this. I have gotten the shape of this pretty good. And under here, all of around here, like, that's going to suck, but I am making progress. All right, I've been doing some hand sanding. This whole area here, all across here, all of this has all been hand sanded. The hood's been hand sanded. This has all been hand sanded. This fender on all sides. And then the upper part of this door and the upper part of this fin most of the way back. I do need to get at this with the sander some more, but I need paper for that first. It's going along well. It's not going amazingly. There's definitely stuff that once I prime it again, there's going to be issues that I'm going to have to sand out. And that's, unfortunately, a lot of that is just chipping edges of what's on here. But it is coming together. It's definitely improving. These are in way better shape. There's a couple little, like, divots in here that I don't like that I may or may not address. I hate this corner. Deep in abiding passion. Same on the other side. Those are just, it's impossible to get anything in there, just the way it's shaped. But this is so much better already. Like, oh man. Obviously, still got a ton of work to do, but I'm really looking forward to, hopefully tonight, being able to put a fresh coat of filler on, or primer on this and have it really, really look good. And then once I'm done that, there's going to be a little bit of detail work here and there. And hopefully that'll be good enough. I have time because the paint's not going to be here for a bit. But I'd rather not be working on it that entire time. I'd really like to get this in primer and set aside. And then maybe work on finishing up painting and welding and painting the chassis. I decided I was tired of sanding, so I decided to work on the underside for a little bit. Cleaned up all the edges where there was goo slopped over the edge or coming through or whatever. Because some of the holes, like, you know, this stuff I'm not going to cut off because it's helping to reinforce. I cleaned up this whole opening, especially here where the old steering column used to be. And then I took out the old cut-off wiring that was on the bolt here, cleaned up this panel, cleaned up these, took out the wiring here, and kind of hammered those a little bit flatter, so a little more out of the way. These are going to get treated with some rust treatment. And then at some point before final paint, the entire inside of this is going to get sprayed with black just to clean it up a little bit, just to make it look nicer. I, on the other hand, am covered with everything. All right, next day. It's really late at night, so unfortunately I'm not going to get that much done. Last night, I went through and hit these with a cup on the angle grinder to get all the loose rust off, and then sprayed and wiped them down with phosphoric acid, which, as you can see, has done a nice job of converting the rust. So it's not perfect, but it's massively better. And that's what we're working on here. So The inside of this is ready to get painted. I'm not going to do that today, but aside from a wash, everything in here is ready to go because I'm not going to try and make this look perfect. I'm just going to try and clean it up by putting a coat of paint in here. So that's good. What I do need to work on is the stuff I showed you from yesterday, mostly the sides and the back. I thought about working on it like this, but that's even less stable. So I'm going to try what I did before with it, which was hooking it on the side. I don't know if that showed up in a video or not, but here, let me show you. So like this. Oh, that's annoying. I just finished that and it's bubbling. Anyway, but yeah, this should give me better access to sand this side. Do it for the other side. The rear, I'm just going to have to do the best I can. Partially, and I haven't gotten any propane because I was like, oh, I'll prime this tonight when I'm done sanding. And then I realized I don't have any propane and it's way too cold. So I guess I'm sanding tonight and then priming tomorrow. All right. Oh, I am wiped out. And I'm done for tonight. I screwed up. It's the only way I can describe it. I put way too much filler on, and I did a way too bad job of it. So there were lots of ridges, and there were lots of like step downs at the end and whatnot. And just generally, like, I put a bunch of filler on to solve a very tiny problem and things like that. And I made so much more work for myself. I mean, just the amount of that gray primer that I put on this now gone tells you the whole story, basically. And like, I coated this entire inner cove here, and then it took forever to get it sanded because I had to do it 100% by hand. And even now, it's not quite right. You know, I kind of slopped it on around this, and that was a bunch of work that I'm still not done because I need to flip the body the other way to do sort of under here where I can see it the way I've done over here. I just, yeah, it was I either put too much filler on or not enough every single time. And I never can figure out quite what I'm doing wrong to get it right. But the end result is, once I do this much work on it the other way, you know, because I still have to do that whole section on the other side, it's basically going to have to get re-primed. And then I'm literally going to have to kind of start over again because I didn't solve it. I solved some of the problems I had, but I didn't solve all the problems. I definitely didn't. And I may have even created new ones. So I'm very frustrated right now with myself because there's kind of a bad, the problem of like, oh, I've got the filler, I'll solve problems with it. And I just start putting it places it doesn't need to be. I did the same thing with the fiberglass filler. Can't even learn this lesson within the same project. But, I mean, it's getting there. I'm making progress. The big problem, though, is this is that epoxy that I used to seal these cracks. And it turns out it's still flexible. Like, it's probably supposed to be. But the problem is, every time I even slightly expose it by sanding down to it, it immediately, like, pops up. So what I'm going to need to do now is go back in and re-grind this stuff out where it's exposed, and then use the fiberglass filler to fill back in those cracks, because it's the only way, like, you know, because it's all over here, and it doesn't, like, this one might be flush, this one's not, this one's not, this one's not, and they've, like, this has been gone over with the DA, so there's no reason it should be proud. So yeah, it's going to have to get very carefully ground down and then filled so that that can become smooth. I don't regret using that epoxy elsewhere, but I shouldn't have used it there. I should have, if I had known it wasn't going to dry rock hard, I wouldn't have used it there. I would have used just the fiberglass. I would have V'd that out and put the fiberglass filler in there instead of the epoxy, but live and learn. It's coming along. It's just taken so much longer than it should, and a lot of that longer than it should is self-inflicted. Like, I just keep finding, like, here, this little cove right here, that I, you know, got the DA there, got the DA here, got the DA here, that all needs to be hand sanded. And it shouldn't, because there was nothing there, but I slopped filler in there to probably solve some tiny little problem. And that's just the case, like, all over the car. You know, I've just like, you know, right, I'm just, like, I keep finding them. right here, it's a little ridge. See, that's unsanded and that's sanded because I either put less in there. Yeah, exactly. This is some here, but less. And then there's a little bump right there. So that's going to have to get hand sanded till that's smooth again and matches the profile over here. You know, just that kind of thing all over the damn car. There's just little spots like that. You know, and every time, like, there's areas I sanded over here, but I didn't quite. Yeah, just frustrating. So what I'm going to do is do the best I can. I'm using 120 because I need to knock this down so aggressively. The DA's got 150 on it, but I'm using 120 when I'm hand sanding because there's just so much to take off. I'm going to have to go over, once I think I've got it all right, I got to go over the entire car with 220 to just smooth out the sanding scratches some, because the 120 scratches from the places where I used this the first go round were visible through the filler, or through the primer. I'm so bad at bodywork. Like, I'm not even saying that to be negative about myself, that's just truth. I am bad at bodywork, I do not enjoy bodywork, and yet that's one of the aspects of this project that's caused it to delay for so long. One is all the rust I found. I mean, that just took the wind out of my sails. Two is I tore it apart too much. Instead of fixing it in sections, I decided I was doing it all at once. And three, the next step after I finish the rust repair is bodywork. I don't want any money work, so it just kind of sits here. I am hoping to get to that this winter, I will be honest, because I mentioned before it's up for sale, but I've had no bites, and a large part of that, I'm sure, is the car is blown apart and half rust repaired. So at the very least, I've realized I need to get the passenger side metal worked and the whole car in epoxy primer, and then kind of go from there, put the windows back in maybe. Anyway, I'm blathering. Yeah, so this is going to sit for tonight because there's nothing I can really do. I can't put any filler or paint on because of, I can't put any filler or paint on it because of how cold it's going to get. So tomorrow, I guess I'll come out and do the other side. I might, if I've got time at lunch, come out, V out those cracks, and put the fiberglass filler on those in that spot on the front. We'll see. Well, shit. At lunch, I came out here and I put fiberglass filler on like I talked about. That was 4-ish hours ago. I got the ratio wrong. It's all still gooey. It's not the cold, like it's cold, but this isn't the cold. This is definitely a mix ratio problem because it's not even close. Like, it's barely hardened at all. I just turned the heater on. I'm gonna let it sit for like an hour with the heater going and then see what happens, but I'm like 99% sure it's a ratio problem. Which is a problem because I put it on a bunch of spots. I was good. I didn't put it everywhere, but I put it on all the problem areas, which means getting it off is going to be a problem. Like, yeah, see, this is going to be absolute hell to get off. Let's hope it dries. Let's hope it's a temperature. I'll be so fucking glad if I'm wrong and it's not, and it's the temperature. But oh, shit. You know what? This is gonna get moved over here and put in front of the heater, and I'm gonna move the chassis onto the table, strip it down for paint, and do all the final welding on it. And then then it'll be ready to paint, and that'll be another step done. We'll do that. Well, progress. Actually, a lot of progress. This is completely welded out now. All of my weld joints everywhere have been welded as much as possible all the way around, at the very least on all four sides. The bumpers have had the ends rounded, front and back, so that's done. This one I had already trimmed, but I finished up. This one I trimmed so that when the bearing is on here, there's not the bit sticking out around it, so there's not something to like catch yourself on there. Welded in a floor. This is out of a thicker, I think this is not 16, something closer to that. And then two little side panels out of some 20, which just happens to be the thinnest I currently have in decent quantity. You can see that they're over here, and the bottom kicks out. That's just to 100% make sure there's enough room for everything over here. If absolutely necessary, I can push this, hammer this carefully to push it further out, put more of an arc in it to clear the brakes. But I think it'll be fine. I didn't put anything here because there's going to be a seat back here. So there's just no point in it. It doesn't really need a firewall because I'm going to use a decently thick piece of wood, which for the purposes of this will be a perfectly functional firewall because it'll burn through the fiberglass before it'll burn through that wood if there is somehow a fire back here. This got reinforced a little bit, a couple more welds where this is all stupidly stable now. So from a welding perspective, this is done. I had talked before about putting in more here and around the front, but the more I think about it, I can't come up with a good way to do it without adding a whole ton more bracing. Because if I put a piece here, I don't want the edge just kind of floating in space, and I don't want to weld it all the way out to here. So I think this does what I need. It has a full floor in it, so that's safe. These two protect anybody in it from the rear wheels, and in the front here, having your foot on the pedal will mean you're not at risk of hitting the wheel. And if you do hit the wheel, it's way less problem than, say, this one with a chain and a tooth on it. You might scuff your shoe at the most there. So fabrication wise and weld out wise, this is done. Realistically, at this point, I could clean up the rust on the base and it's ready for paint. Or rather, I need to clean the whole thing. But, this basically is a wipe / scrub whatever down away from being paintable. For the body, it's been sitting here for the whole time I've been working. And like this stuff that's right in front of there is a little bit better, but is still soft. Like, it's not sticky, but it's still, well, I guess it is kind of sticky. This stuff, tacky as a Vegas wedding. Like, not cured at all. So I really fucked that up, and that's probably going to set me back because I don't even know what the proper way to get that all off is. So that sucks because I was already bummed about the whole filler problem of just sanding too much filler. So I keep making more work for myself. Wire brushed this and then treated it. As you can see, there's far less actual rust on it. Most of it was just purely surface rust. This was oil canning a bit. So these are two more straps of the same metal, just basically as reinforcing braces. And that's now super solid. So that takes care of that. Welcome to the improbable basement, because it's freezing cold and wet out there. I dragged this in, first off, to just see if, hey, maybe if it's in the warmth, this stuff will cure. And it's better. Like, it might be very, very slowly curing, but I don't think realistically it's going to cure. At least not cure properly. So the new plan is I got the heat gun, I got some scrapers. I'm going to go see if I can get this stuff off with that. And then I will reapply with a proper mix and then go at it again. So I'm basically, I'm going to put myself behind because I'm going to certainly damage all the other body work around it that I've done. Like I did some test scraping over here and you can kind of see. But what am I going to do? There's really no sort of solution. Like, I was reading online and there's some people say spray it with stuff or whatever, but I don't trust any of that. And I can't even cover it because it's proud of the surface. So that's where I am. Oh, and yeah, just because I'm me, my basement's full of projects too. It's a disease. All right, I think I'm done, especially because the smoke alarms went off. Chip this off. You can see this is kind of the problem. Is this is what I'm being left with is really effed up mess. I'm basically, you know, starting over at least from zero, if not negative now in a bunch of these areas. But I got all this off. I got the bits off the trunk lid. That corner, this corner here. Like I said, around here, there was one or two other small spots on the other side. I didn't do anything to this here, even though it is sticky, because it took so long to shape this. I don't want to risk using the heat gun and damaging it. So this is going to get scrubbed with like acetone or lacquer thinner or something, and hopefully that'll be able to get it off. All this is going to need to clean up that way because there's, you know, like this area is super thin with it, and if I try and get it off, I'm going to take off all of this paint and everything else and cause new problems. So I'm going to clean up a little bit in here. Oh, and I also got some of the areas where I really messed up with the other filler and had it way, way too thick. Like here and a little bit over here and stuff. I also took it off because it's probably less work to put the right amount of filler on. This was really bad because I'd completely lost this body line. It's probably better to put the right amount of filler there and properly score the body line like I did down here than it would be to rework that by just sanding it. Alrighty, it's been a day or two. I left the body downstairs in the basement to give it any chance of that, the last of that stuff setting up, and it seems to have worked. Places where it was still, like around that headlight, where there was still some thickness to it, none of it was sticky anymore, but that was still flexible with no structure. So leaving it would not have just let it cure and solve the problem. But fortunately, the little bits that were left, the really thin amounts, seem to have cured and set up. So I should be okay there. Plus I also just now sanded most of it off. But yeah, what I've done is I took the DA, went over all those areas, mostly to just kind of smooth them out a little bit again, make sure there weren't any high spots from scraping and whatnot. I also just aggressively went over any other filler on the car with the DA to knock it back. I wanted to knock it back because I don't want to have to hand sand through big things. You know, I'd rather smooth out a little bit of a problem than sand through my way too much filler applied. So this is going to get cleaned off. It's going to get taken back down to the basement. I'm going to apply new fiberglass filler to those same areas. Let that dry, bring it back out here, sand those, and give the whole thing a going over. See if I can find any other issues. Mark them, take it back downstairs, put a little bit of filler. Learning my lesson here. And then hopefully that will get me to prime. I'm sure once I prime, I'll find a few more small spots, but I'm only going to fix those, and I'm going to try and fix them with glazing putty if I can. Trying to learn a lesson here. Really am. And then this can get its paint. The paint showed up early, but doesn't matter because I'm nowhere near ready, even though I should be, and I would have been if I hadn't made some miscalculations along the way. All right, I've made myself a little dashboard here. It's currently drying, so I'm not going to touch it. But this switch here is going to be extended off of that switch that's on it. I don't know how it's attached, so I'm not going to mess with it, try and get it off because I think it's under. I think it may be screwed in from under the metal housing. What I'm just going to do, since that's just a through switch, I'm going to cut the wire, splice in long length of wire, bring it up, and put it through this switch. This switch is designed to have a light. I'm not going to obviously have a light, but it's just a decent looking little rocker switch that I happen to already have. So that's going to be my kill switch up here. And then I got this push-pull choke cable, which was advertised as chrome and is the saddest chrome I've ever seen if it is. But that's going to get mounted through the other side. It did turn out that these had to be on either side of that bearing assembly. So this is going to get painted. It's going to be finished up and then set aside. And when I'm doing final assembly, I'm going to use some sheet metal screws once everything else is together to screw this around the steering column. And the edge of this is a little sharper than I like. So I have this door edging stuff from a project that's actually been done, but you're going to see the video like a month from now at least, because it's one of the videos that's been pushed back by the videos for this project. But what I'm just going to do is glue a little bit of that around the bottom of it so that there's one, it's going to look a little more finished, and two, it's going to protect somebody from getting cut on that edge. So I think with that, that's the last piece of fab work. Oh no, I got to make a mount for the choke cable on the engine. That's the last piece of fab work on the body, or the chassis. Alrighty, so this down in the basement had this applied, I think yesterday, maybe the day before. Let it dry down there, and then today we brought it back out here because I'm not sanding this in the basement. The house does not need fiberglass dust in it, dear God. So we're going to sand this down with just like before. Sand it with the DA, do some hand sanding. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to hand sand in this freezing cold weather. My hands suck enough already. And then figure out where I need to do final detail filler. And then we're only doing it there. This is more for me than anything else. I actually put more of the fiberglass filler on in more places than I possibly should have because I'm bad at this, but I was smart at least that I put super thin coats. I basically, it's like if I'm putting it somewhere, I'm squeegeeing on the thinnest amount. I'm not letting it build up or whatever. And most of those spots were things where I was like, I don't think that spot's going to be okay on its own. But we're going to do our best here to bash through this. I'm really, really hoping that with this, I should be 90% of the way there. And then tomorrow I can come in, do some detail stuff, and then maybe I'll be ready to put another coat of primer on and see where it is. And then with that primer, whatever I find, I'm fixing those. Nothing else. Nothing else. So frustrated. But yeah, it's sanding. You've seen it. We'll get back to you later. All right. About to go in for dinner. Made great progress. This is all sanded. This is sanded except for this area here that I can't get the sander into. This is all basically sanded. Unfortunately, there's a big chunk out over here from when I was using the heat gun that apparently didn't fill in properly. I think it might have had schmutz in it and just not stuck. This whole fin is sanded inside and out, but this groove needs some. This whole side is sanded down. There's a chunk there I missed. This is good. I haven't done the inside of this headlight or the other one. I've done some around the grill here, but it's going to need a bunch of hand sanding. Hood and cowl are done with the DA. There's a couple spots I'm going to need to hit with the sandpaper, and then there's definitely going to be some more filler up here. This headlight, same deal as the other side. This fender is all sanded, and the top of this fender, is sanded. So basically I have this door, that quarter, the underside of there, and a little bit of touch up here and there with the paper. And it's coming out really good. There's definitely problems. The biggest one is that chunk in the back. That's the only one I think it's going to need more fiberglass. There's definitely going to be a little bit of touch up here and there, but I'm fairly confident that if I sand these panels and don't find any big surprises, it makes the most sense to filler it or to prime it after the hand sanding. And then it'll just, like I said before, it'll be touch-ups at that point. And I think there's a point there where I'm going to have to just be like, that's good enough. Because I'm largely back where I was before I did the primer. But it's good. It's coming along. It's looking good. I'm really happy. Last time when I was at this filler with the cowl, there was a whole dead area here that I needed to fill in with the other filler that I didn't like how it happened. So that was why I was actually going over with fiberglass. So this time it came together much nicer. So this is all shape-wise, aside from little details, good. It just needs some touch up here and there for like little like lumps and bumps, and it's going to need the tiniest bit of skim coating. I think like this area here keeps being a problem. But overall, it's probably going to need the tiniest little skim coat just to fill in little holes and stuff. So, good, 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 good. Major progress. Everything was sanded. And then because I was using 150 on the DA and 120 on the, for the hand sanding, I knew there were going to be a ton of scratches all over it because the 120 gave me scratches through the primer last time. So I just wet sanded the whole thing with 220. It's not going to fully remove the scratches, but it'll make them way better. It also means I've gone back over it one more time. See if I can find any more spots. There's a couple spots. That one on the trunk lid in the back and that one by the hood scoop that are definitely going to need filler. I guarantee you when I put primer on, I'll find a few more. But most of it feels really good, actually. I think heavy primer, fill those spots, maybe a coat of sandable primer, either in general or in those spots, and I think I'll be good. All right, next day. So today the high's supposed to be 38. Tomorrow the high's supposed to be 40. It's going to be worse after that. So this weekend I got to get this painted. So to that end, I picked up several drop cloths, and my plan is basically somewhere around here I got to put a drop cloth up, somewhere over there. I'd like to contain just this area under here, but I don't know if it's going to be big enough. So if I can do that, great. If I can't, I will go further out to that beam and then put plastic horizontally. But basically I need to make myself a paint booth. Not so much for dust, more for temperature retention, because the body needs to get primed, and then the chassis needs to get primed, and then the body needs to get body worked. The chassis needs to get painted. The body needs to get either reprimed or painted. All in the next couple of days. All right, we are enclosed. I definitely had to put one up there because there's too many gaps up to the upper floor. This means I'll be able to use that counter somewhat. And then over here, this is taped way out here to the holes. This does not reach, so those edges are going to get taped together. And then I'm going to figure like a bungee cord or something to pull that corner out. And then over here, this is going to get like tucked there. I've got just enough in here. If I pay attention when I'm painting, I should be fine. So I also blew this area out with the leaf blower to get the worst of the dust. I actually did that before I put most of the sheeting up. Not all of it, because there's dust all over this. We're going to ignore that. But yeah, we're just going to... This is just going to be a little bit better. The heater is going to end up in here. Get this nice and toasty warm. Alrighty, so I've got my heater over there. The piece of wood is to make sure the plastic can't drift against it and catch fire or melt or whatever. A little bit of safety there, you know, safety 27. As you can hear, the compressor's going, though I'm not anywhere near ready to paint. I just wanted to fire it up now so I didn't think, oh, I'm ready to paint, and then realize I have to sit away from the compressor. I've given this a triple wipe down with Prep Clean. It's still not coming out, you know, I'm still getting dust off of it, but I think there's a point where I just have to shoot the goddamn paint on it and deal with the consequences. I dragged this in from the house just so that I could stick it in here, know exactly what my temperature is. And we're right now hovering just below 50, but that's not been running for very long. I actually noticed that this is flapping in a way that I'm pretty sure a lot of my heat is actually going up there and escaping. So we're going to tape that. And then, I don't know, it should warm up in here fairly quickly, I think. Oh, I need to move the paint in here and get it inside the warmth envelope as well. Because it doesn't help to have stuff up to temperature and then have... Doesn't help to have the room up to temperature if you're then going to spray 30-degree paint. So I'll put that actually on the floor, not right in front of, but close enough to get the benefit of the warmth from the heater. And yeah, so this has basically got to sit until it's warm enough to paint. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to put a nice thick coat of gray primer on it, let it sit for another couple of hours, and then if it's still tacky, wheel it out there. If it's not tacky, carry it out there. I need to bring the chassis in, warm that back up, and wipe that all down and then spray that. It's still climbing in here, but very slowly, and I'm debating how patient I'm going to be. I realized something that amuses me. If that was less safe, this would be easier. What I mean by that is that has a tip sensor in it. So if it, especially forward, but I think also back, if it tips over, it shuts off the gas, you know, safety, so it doesn't cause a fire. If it didn't have that, I could lay it on its back under the car, point it upwards, and all that heat would go up, both into the table, but also, you know, into the car, and do a much better job of heating it directly. Because, like, right as of right now, I've turned the car around to try and heat the other side up because the front was getting kind of not warm, but like it was less cold. But the back was still freezing cold. So trying to do that, but like it's still chilly in here. I've put down the edge as much as I can, sort of like tried to like weigh it down with various stuff. I do still have an opening over there so that it can draw in fresh air. But it's never going to get, like, this corner over here is noticeably cooler than even the like here and here are noticeably different temperatures. But I think I'm pretty good here, especially because that's going to stay running for at least an hour after I've finished painting. So even if the paint's a little on the cold side, it's only going to improve. And right now I'm at 57, 58, something in that range. So I think I'm going to give the body one more wipe down with the Prepsol, and then I'm going to start prepping paint. All right, painting happened. Let's run you through it. So, this is what happens if you forget to put the tip back in your gun and turn it back over again. So that was dumb. Went on well. A little bit of, actually really very little dust in it. Probably a lot of runs on the front here. For some reason I was running it like crazy on the front. Not a huge deal. Many of them will, it's not a huge deal, many of them will stand out. But like, there's a lot of cracking marks that I tried to fix, wouldn't fix. So we'll see what happens with that. This is not as bad as I thought it was once it had color on it. That's worse. So this area is going to need reworking. I knew that already. There's a couple spots where it bubbled up like this. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Lots of little spots where the paint ain't great. The trunk back here is way less bad than I thought it would be. More cracking, some more weirdness with the paint. It looks kind of like fish-eyeing, except that I wiped it down, and it doesn't go all the way down, so I'm not quite sure what's happening there. But like, overall, not terrible. There's absolutely stuff I'm going to have to fix, but it looks surprisingly good. This area needs a little bit of work, mostly for little pockets in the fiberglass filler. So that's going to need skim coating with the top thing. This area is a little rougher than expected. But it's overall, like, 90% of it's great. Like, then it's this kind of where I was before. 90% of it's great. Let's not fuck with it all this time. But I think this is going to obviously have to dry really thoroughly. And then I'm going to go in, and most of this is going to get scuffed. A couple areas are going to get a little bit of detail sanding, trying to not go through this, so that when I put the next coat on, those problems can get completely sealed off and buried, because this is a sealer. All right, an hour later, I opened the big door to air this place out a little bit. But it's dry to the touch already. So I'm really happy with that. That was my single biggest fear, was whether this was going to cure or not. And clearly it is curing. It's dry to the touch, but it's clearly not dry. I don't quite know how to explain that, but especially like if I touch the runs, see? They're not quite cured or something. So this is going to sit. I'm going to leave the thing running for another hour. I think I need to kick it up another. I think I need to kick it back up to full because it feels colder in here. Probably because I opened. Feels colder in here. Probably partially because I opened that door. But yeah, super happy with that. All right, things have happened. The car is out there because it's mostly dry. It's obviously going to need to finish, fully setting up, but it was dry enough I could move it without any issues, so it's dry enough. This is in here now. It's all been wiped down on the top. The underside of the tray will need a wipe down, but I didn't want to flip it back over again. My black paint's warmed up, I think. So I'm going to shoot everything on this that I can reach black. Call that good enough. Right. Well, it's painted. The black did not like spraying in this cold. All the angles on this sucked to do. So it's not great, but I think all the areas that were missed are things I can do from the underside. And I think I've got enough on it that it'll be fine. I don't know if I'm going to use Rust-Oleum or if I'm going to do the gloss black that I have, but I'll do something over this just to make sure everything's sealed, but it should be fine. All right, next day. In the light of day, still looks pretty good. Still can see some flaws. Can actually see I was a little skimpy in some areas. No, actually no, that's just the light. That still looks surprisingly good. We're going to work on that. The frame in here, unfortunately the light of day shows me the more bits that I missed. Because I ran out of paint, I couldn't go over stuff a second time, and that kind of screwed me. I probably should have mixed more paint and sprayed more, but realistically, I was having just not a great time. So sometimes it's just worth making you do the work later. Again, this is mostly a protective coat, so if it's not perfect, this thing's not going to be exposed to a lot of... It'll be fine. I'm trying to make myself feel better. It'll be fine. So what I'm going to do today is flip this over and do my best to get a coat on the underside. And a lot of the areas that I kind of didn't do a great job on, I'm going to try and hit those as well. Again, this is all getting a second coat, top coat on top of it. So if there's a little bit that I missed somewhere, when I do the top coat, I'll be able to hit those quick. Body's out there. It's all been scuffed. A couple detail spots have been sanded. And then it's had... I basically was able to find spot putty that was more like icing filler. It was a two-part. Came in a tube like glazing putty, but it had a activator, which means it's going to be great for getting it to actually cure in the cold weather. So that's all out there. It's warmed up in here. We're going to get the black on the sort of underside of this and hope that that goes well. Right now I'm having trouble finding my mask. I don't know what I did with it, but I'm sure I'll find it, and I won't be spraying without it because I'm not a moron. All right, well that went pretty well, but I realized I screwed something up before. I had the ratios wrong for my previous round of black paint. Fortunately, it was too much hardener, not enough paint. Not the other way around. The other way around, it would never have dried. But that was why it was going on really thin and not covering well. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but it was really confusing me. So I got the ratio right on this side. It meant I had way too much paint because I realized, wait, I think I have this wrong after I'd started mixing. So I had to add more paint to get my ratio correct and ended up with way too much paint. But everything's been coated, and I did as much like up around and whatnot as that gun would allow to try and recoat stuff that I knew I hadn't done a great job of before. So this is going to dry probably for the rest of the day. I'd be surprised if this sets up in any reasonable amount of time. This black always takes forever to cure, and these temperatures are not going to assist that in any way. So this is going to sit. I'm not going to do anything with it. Give the body like a half an hour for all that to cure so I can start sanding it. And we're going to keep chipping away at it. I'm definitely making progress. So. Sanded. I did use it in a lot of spaces, but I was being very careful to put a very, very little amount on. And being very careful when I was sanding it off. I was wet sanding it with 220 so I don't rip this stuff up. So, pretty darn good. There's a couple of these that I don't think got entirely fixed, and I think there's going to be a point where some of them just aren't gonna. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a very quick once over with wet sanding with the 220, just to make sure I've broken the surface everywhere. And then it's going to get cleaned, and then it's going to get Rust-Oleum, this stuff. I'd rather use an automotive grade one, but I'm not going to buy another gallon of primer right now, especially because I'd have to wait till tomorrow to do it. But that stuff should be fine. The whole thing is going to get a coat of that. I have 2 cans of it. That's going to get sanded back with 220, and then barring some horrible thing I find, that's it. That's the end of it. I'm done. It's as good as it's going to get. Paint the damn thing. That's dry. Haven't had a chance to sand it. Not going to get a chance tonight. But most of it looks real good. I can't tell if this is ribbing in color or if there's some dripping, because that stuff was really prone to running. But there's a little thing there I should have filled. Most of this looks fantastic overall. I mean, a little bit of detail sanding here and there is going to make it a lot better. The only real area that's still a problem is some of the paint decided to start chipping over here. And I have a sneaking suspicion the only fix I'm going to have is going to be to sand a whole area here and then redo it. But almost everything else is just, it's good or good enough. So I'm real happy with that. It looks so good by comparison. That might be an issue too, but still, by comparison, holy crap, that looks so good. Speaking of looking good, I flipped over the frame in here. Everything got sprayed. Oh, it stinks in here. Do this real quick. Everything got sprayed with semi-gloss paint, and then got sprayed with truck bed liner. So it looks really good. The truck bed liner makes it look so much more done and professional. The only real issue that doesn't look great is there's some spots where the paint dripped when it was in the other direction, but I'm planning to put some foam on there for rattle purposes, so that'll hide that beautifully. So this looks great. So happy. All right, had a little unexpected time to work during the day because the power is out, so I can't do my job. I have the lights turned on in here so that when the power does come on, I'll know. But in the meantime, this is literally the only thing I can do. So this area continues to be a problem because it keeps being weird and chipping and stuff. So I've sanded it way back now, put a coat of filler on. Actually just realized, so we're going to do this while we talk, that it's a little shallow right there, which is one of the problem areas. So hopefully that'll be able to get taken care of. The little puck down there is barely even filled in. Like, I tried to essentially skim it flush, so that will take nothing to sand. The rest of this has all been very lightly wet sanded. There's one or two small areas that, like here, that I'm going to have to hit with another coat when I hit those with another coat and then sand that back. But overall, this is ready for paint, and I'm pretty darn happy with it. It's pretty nice. Obviously, I can't paint it until the power comes back on, but like looking at this area, I'm really happy with the final. Now I'm actually going to come back in here and do a little bit more sanding now that I can see. Now that it's dried, I can see in the light that there's a little bit of ribbing from the paint up here acted weird, so I wiped it off, started again, and I can see some slight ridges from the edge of where I wiped, but I can sand that really quick. Overall, though, this body looks really good. There's still little flaws in it. There's always going to be little flaws in it. And I think at this point, if I try and chase perfection, I'm going to keep causing new problems. So that piece in the back, I just barely filled it. I'm just going to barely sand it. That I will call good enough. This is the only thing that's a real problem, just because it's so visible because it's on the hood. That's why I want to really nail this down. However, today is Monday the 8th. I want to try and get a video out tomorrow. At this point, it might end up getting out Wednesday. But either way, I need to stop here so I can get this video out. For anybody who's been really interested in this, this is going to be for sale the moment it's done. I don't need it, and you'll eventually see a video about I had a really big expense that I'm going to need to make up some of the money on. So this is going up for sale literally as soon as I've put it together and successfully taken it for a test drive. But the next video will be the final video. However long that takes you, if you don't see that video for a while, that means it took a while. But the next video this thing will end. I was hoping to do it on this one, but we had issues and stuff. The next video, this will be painted, assembled, interior, running, driving, lights. The lights aren't going to light up. I'm not putting an electrical system in it, but the lights will be installed front and rear if a future owner wants to upgrade it to make it work. It'll be done, completed. So I look forward to seeing you in that video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.